On Wednesday, the drama will probably intensify even further. I want to start with a very specific, quiet interaction that happened recently. It was the moment Harrison stood in front of Willow and officially turned down the highly coveted hospital administration position. At first, it didn't seem important. It just looked like a man choosing his true calling in law enforcement over a comfortable, high paying desk job. But something about that moment stayed with me. I couldn't stop thinking about the look of sheer, unadulterated panic that flashed across Willow's face when he spoke his truth. Harrison did not just decline a job, he made a definitive, unwavering declaration that he is going to remain a police officer and dedicate his considerable resources to investigating Jens. If you ask me, the tension in that room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Willow is desperately trying to hide Jens, keeping him concealed within the very walls of her home, terrified of every knock at the door. She knows exactly how dangerous, manipulative, and unpredictable Jens truly is, and hearing Harrison vow to hunt him down must have felt like a literal death sentence echoing in her ears. Harrison is a brilliant, instinctual investigator, and as he stood there, watching Willow's erratic, nervous reactions, a seed of doubt was firmly planted in his mind. He is beginning to suspect that Willow is protecting Jens for deeply personal, highly guarded reasons that she refuses to share. The proximity of the relentless hunter and the terrified protector standing in that single room creates an atmosphere of suffocating dread that you can feel through the screen. As we follow this thread outward, we start to see how this localized panic bleeds into the lives of others, creating a sprawling web of desperation and poor choices. I keep coming back to Brooklyn and the immense crushing pressure she is currently under. She has been navigating a dangerous minefield of her own making for weeks, and now Lucy is backing her into an impossibly tight corner. Lucy is applying relentless, unforgiving pressure, demanding that Brooklyn step up and join the ruthless corporate battle for control of their shared cosmetics company. You would naturally think Brooklyn might just be grateful that Lucy helped direct the police investigation toward Willow, giving Brooklyn a brief, desperate moment to breathe. But the human mind does strange, unpredictable things when it is cornered and stripped of its usual defenses. Instead of stepping back and playing it safe, Brooklyn is considering a shockingly bold and aggressive move that could ruin everything. She is contemplating a massive, hostile grab for corporate shares, a desperate attempt to solidify her power, protect her fragile marriage, and secure her elevated status within her incredibly wealthy, judgmental family. She is playing with absolute fire, risking her entire future on a single gamble. And the fascinating part is that she is not nearly as stealthy as she believes herself to be. Michael, who has always possessed a sharp, analytical eye for familial deception, is watching her every single move from a distance. Michael is the very first person to notice that Brooklyn is hiding a highly dangerous plan, one that has the potential to completely shatter the foundation of their family's legacy. He sees the reckless, wild determination in her eyes, the exact kind of determination that usually precedes a catastrophic, unrecoverable fall from grace. But the deeper we go into these intertwined lives, the more we realize that these corporate maneuvers and local police investigations are merely the surface ripples of a much darker, much more dangerous ocean. There is a profound shadow beneath the story, a secondary narrative that is quietly unfolding entirely out of sight. This brings us to the frantic, heart-stopping encounter between Lulu and Laura just before Lulu rushed out of town. Lulu desperately needed to see Laura, but the secret she carried was not what anyone expected to hear. It was something that shifted the entire narrative axis. We all thought the darkest secret was the devastating fact that young Rocco had pulled the trigger and shot Ross during a moment of sheer panic. But Lulu revealed a truth to Laura that is infinitely more horrifying and complex. She confessed her growing paralyzing terror that Britt is currently being manipulated by Jens. This isn't just a simple, tragic case of a child running away with a sick, desperate relative. Britt is allegedly being used as an active tool to drag Rocco into a massive, sinister plot orchestrated by Jens himself. When Laura heard those terrifying words, you could almost see the world shift and crumble beneath her feet. The realization that her beloved grandson is not just a runaway, but an active, helpless pawn in a mastermind's twisted game, is a nightmare beyond any grandmother's comprehension. Lulu, consumed by urgency and fear, begged Laura to watch over Charlotte while she and Dante head to the distant, dangerous shores of Tortola to find Rocco and Britt before it is too late. This chilling revelation completely recontextualizes the entire pursuit and everything we thought we knew about the escape, and it perfectly aligns with the massive psychological shift we are currently seeing in Dante. For days, Dante has been carrying a heavy, toxic burden of anger, directing his frustration squarely at Lulu for keeping secrets and creating this chaotic, life-threatening mess. But after a deeply grounding, emotional, and clarifying conversation with Elizabeth, Dante's perspective has entirely fractured and realigned. He is no longer blaming Lulu for the nightmare they are living. Instead, his suspicion has pivoted sharply, locking onto Britt with the intensity of a seasoned detective who just found the missing piece of a gruesome puzzle. This is where the scattered pieces start to form, a picture that is genuinely chilling to behold. Dante is meticulously analyzing the timeline. The sudden, inexplicable disappearance and the exact location in Tortola provided by Cassius. The more I think about it, the more Dante's new dark theory makes terrifying sense. Maybe there's another layer here that we have been completely blind to from the very beginning. Dante is starting to firmly believe that Britt intentionally took Rocco away from his home, not out of medical panic or fear of the authorities, but as a calculated, cold-blooded move to protect a deeply buried, toxic secret tied directly to her dark family legacy. It is entirely possible that Britt views Rocco as a necessary shield to keep her enemies at bay, or perhaps she is so deeply entangled in Jens' psychological manipulation that she genuinely believes she is saving the boy by damning him to a life on the run. I keep wondering whether Britt even realizes she is a pawn herself, or if she thinks she is the one pulling the strings. This horrific possibility forces Dante and Lulu to do the one thing they have historically struggled with. They must completely, unconditionally unite. They have to push past all their historical trauma, all their recent stinging betrayals, and forge an unbreakable alliance if they want to pull their son out of this international web of deceit. They are flying directly into a violent storm, armed with nothing but fragments of the truth and their desperate love for their child. While Dante and Lulu are flying into the terrifying unknown, a different kind of storm is quietly, methodically gathering back home in the city. It doesn't seem accidental that Sonny is abruptly changing his entire approach to warfare and survival. Sonny is a man who traditionally meets his enemies head-on, with overwhelming, deafening, and lethal force. But he realizes that Jens is a completely different breed of monster, one that cannot be intimidated by traditional shows of power. Jens is not motivated by territory, influence, or money. He is driven by a pure, unadulterated, blinding obsession with revenge. So, recognizing this unique threat, Sonny is intentionally stepping back into the shadows to play a much longer, much more psychological game. Sonny has decided to turn Ava into his reluctant, secret weapon in this shadow war. He orchestrates a covert, highly tense meeting with Ava, presenting her with a highly dangerous secret alliance that could get them both killed. Sonny knows that Ava possesses a unique, almost predatory understanding of the human psyche, forged through years of her own dark experiences. He believes that Ava perfectly understands the dark, twisting psychology of revenge that fuels Jens' every waking moment. Sonny desperately wants Ava to use that very obsession against Jens, to weave a psychological trap that uses Jens' own blinding hatred as the irresistible bait to pull him into a fatal, inescapable snare. At first, Ava flatly, unequivocally refuses the dangerous proposition. She has spent years trying to untangle herself from these lethal underworld games, trying to build a semblance of peace, and she has no desire to step back into the direct line of fire for Sonny's benefit. But then, the horrifying reality of the situation crashes down upon her shoulders. She receives chilling intelligence suggesting that Jens' thirst for vengeance is so vast, so incredibly indiscriminate, that he might be actively targeting both her and little Avery to punish Sonny. The moment Avery's safety is compromised, Ava's entire demeanor drastically shifts from reluctant to fiercely protective. The tension here is absolutely palpable. It is not a sudden, loud explosion of violence, but rather the slow, agonizing, terrifying tightening of a wire around everyone's throats. Ava is now actively reconsidering the alliance, coldly calculating the immense, life-threatening risks of standing beside Sunny versus the catastrophic, unthinkable risks of standing alone against a madman like Jens. As we look at the board and all the pieces in play, every single player is walking blindly into the dark, unaware of the traps laid before them. What if we're missing something fundamental about Jens's ultimate overarching endgame? Willow is trembling in her own living room, desperately trying to conceal a dangerous fugitive, while Harrison, the man she once trusted implicitly, uses all his formidable investigative prowess to hunt that very fugitive down, entirely unaware of how close his prey truly is. Brooklyn is standing on the precipice of a massive corporate war, ready to detonate her family's stability for a fleeting grasp at power, completely unaware that Michael is already measuring her for a devastating fall. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, across the ocean, Dante and Lulu are descending upon Tortola, hoping against hope to rescue their innocent son from Britt's grasp, only to realize they might be walking directly into a mastermind's meticulously crafted trap. And back in the city, Ava is preparing to step into Sunny's intricate web, offering herself as living bait to catch a predator who might already be hunting her child from the shadows. Something feels unfinished about all of this. I can't shake the feeling that these seemingly separate threads, the corporate greed, the dark family secrets, the desperate island rescues, and the lethal underworld alliances are all being pulled by the exact same hand in the dark. The story is still unfolding, the shadows are still stretching across the city, and the true devastating cost of these hidden secrets has yet to be paid. We will just have to keep watching the dark to see who emerges, and who is swallowed whole.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.